We'll appreciate it, my friend. Keep us in the loop. Joining us now is Republican Congressman Will Hurd of Texas. He serves on the House Intel and Homeland Security Committees and is a former undercover CIA officer who served in the Middle East. Congressman, always a pleasure. I want to talk to you about what we just saw down there in Texas with people messing with that emergency signal system, what that means for the integrity of our cybersecurity with our grid. But let's talk about these bigger macros first. Help me understand the moral agency involved with what just happened in Syria. The president justifying the strike by saying, listen, they crossed the line. You know, it's wrong. This is the right moral message. We're America. How does that not apply to the other killing that's going on in Syria? I get that chemicals are bad. I get that we have the 1925 agreement, you know, and then that's always been a priority in the international community. But either you think it's wrong that this despot is killing his people, or you don't. How do you draw this moral distinction?
Well, I think Assad should go. I've been saying that for a long time. You can't have stability in Syria with Assad in power. Assad is the one that is the reason why we have a refugee problem. Assad is the reason that a civil war started, which created a vacuum that allowed ISIS to come in. I think ISIS is an immediate threat to the United States, but in order to truly demolish them, you have to have Assad go as well. And so I do believe there needs to be more conversations about what does Syria look like post-Assad. What does Syria look like once the rebels take back Raqqa? These are some of the conversations that the executive branch and Congress should be having a conversation on. And I also believe that the strikes of last week, the 59 Tomahawk missile strikes in Syria, was the right move to show that this is a new day and that kinetic strikes are on the table.
But what's the plan? You know, everybody keeps saying, I don't know what the plan is. They have to form the plan. We're going to see what the plan is. You see the top officials in the White House, they're at mixed messaging at best. Do you think that there's a plan, or do you think this was a one-off?
I think this is evolving. I think that would be the best way to describe this. I think the president is consuming intelligence, and the situation on the ground is changing day to day, and his thoughts on this is evolving as well. I think one of the conversations that Secretary Tillerson is going to be having with the Russians later this week is going to be on the Russian support to Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and what the Russians can do in order to move forward there, because they are complicit. They are supposed to be responsible for getting rid of the chemical weapons. It obviously didn't happen, and so I'm sure that this topic will be a major part of the conversations that Secretary Tillerson's having in Russia.
What's your take on sending this battle group up into the waters off the Korean Peninsula? Again, is this something that's been thought through, in your opinion, or is it just the hope that the show of force is enough?
Well, that battle carrier group has been in that region before. I think Kim Jong-un, he has the ability to kill hundreds of thousands of people right now in South Korea with the push of a button. He will stop at nothing to have an intercontinental ballistic missile. They likely have the capability of putting some type of nuclear warhead on top of that. That means in less than 12 minutes, he can potentially kill 12 million people. And we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do when we see a potential test of an ICBM? Are we going to try to shoot that ICBM down? Are we going to let the test go on unimpeded? These are some of the questions that should be asked when it comes to North Korea. But the reality here is that this is a real opportunity for the U.S. and China to have true security cooperation when it comes to North Korea. The Chinese have to recognize that Kim Jong-un is more of a problem to Chinese security than a U.S. South Korea alliance.
So let's bring it back home, down where you are in Texas. Somebody hacked the public communication systems down there, the emergency alerts. They're going off all over the place, all these 911 calls. It's a distraction, it's a disturbance, but is it an indication that, wow, we are really vulnerable to cyber attacks of our power grid? Things could really happen, and thus bringing our attention back to this Russia interference investigation. You know, you have to take them seriously because you don't have to use a missile to mess with somebody these days.
Well, when I got out of the CIA, I helped start a cybersecurity company, and my team had been involved in, trying to hack a subway-like system. And we figured out that we couldn't get access to the trains or to the critical infrastructure, but you could take over PA systems. So I think a PA system like was taken over is separate and on a separate network than usually the control systems that are being used to power our lights. But it's an indication that, you can create a lot of havoc by taking over something like a PA system, and imagine if it was more than just sirens. And so I think local municipalities have to recognize that and understand that the threat surface, the attack surface that you have to defend is much broader than most people realize.
Oh, that's interesting. So is your message to the American people that don't worry about somebody taking over our air traffic control or our trains or anything that would, have a high degree of lethality to it? We have no reason to believe that those capabilities exist?
Well, the capabilities are always there, the intent is there, but we've seen that defenders are able to protect against this threat. Anytime you upgrade the system, you introduce new vulnerabilities or potential vulnerabilities that can be attacked. But just know that, Department of Homeland Security is working closely with our municipalities. We're trying to make sure that many of the federal resources that are available to local municipalities for these types of issues. So, the cyber threat is real, the cyber threat is diverse, but those that are defending need to recognize that all these systems are connected, and you can create pandemonium in a number of different ways.
Will Hurd, Republican representative from Texas, thank you for being on New Day, as always.
Always a pleasure, Chris.
Allison.
There were differing messages.